You poured me a cup of coffee when I had nothing to give you back. The boardroom went quiet. Vivian Cross turned her wheelchair slowly until she faced the 12 people who had spent the entire morning explaining why my life's work needed to be torn down. And not one person in this room, she said, ever offered me a seat. I was standing in the doorway with my apron still on, flour on my sleeve. My hands were shaking, and I did not fully understand yet what was about to happen. I only knew that 3 weeks earlier this woman had been a stranger in the rain, and now every powerful person at that long glass table was afraid of her. Then she looked at me and said my name. Elias, come in. They need to hear where that coffee came from. 3 weeks earlier, I had no idea any of this was coming. 3 weeks earlier, I was just a man trying to keep the lights on. The diner is called Della's. It sits on the corner of Rowan Street, right where the neighborhood starts to breathe. 14 tables, a counter with 8 stools, a window that fogs up when the grill gets going, so the whole place glows warm from the sidewalk on a cold night. My wife picked the paint color, a soft blue, the color of the sky right before morning. She never got to see the sign go up. She passed 2 years before I finally saved enough to open the doors, and I named it after her because I promised her I would. I am Elias Warren. I was 35 years old that autumn, and I had one daughter, Nia, who was 7 and the entire reason my heart still worked. I will not tell you much about her because a little girl deserves her privacy, but I will tell you that her drawings covered my refrigerator, that she left her purple backpack on the 3rd stool by the window every day after school, and that she believed her father could fix anything. That belief was the heaviest thing I carried. Heavier than the debt. Heavier than the grief. Because the truth was, I was not fixing everything. I was barely holding on. The morning it started, I was doing the math again. I did the math every morning the way some people pray. Coffee beans, eggs, the electric bill, the loan payment, the rent. Always the rent. And that morning there was an envelope wedged under the front door that had not been there when I locked up the night before. I knew what it was before I opened it. Thick paper. A silver logo in the corner. A single word printed clean and cold. Meridian. Notice of intent to redevelop. It read. And below that, a lot of polite language that all meant the same thing. Your building has been acquired. Your lease will not be renewed. You have until the end of the month. I set it on the counter next to the register and I looked at it for a long time. Then I flipped the sign to open, tied my apron, and started the coffee, because a man can panic or a man can work, and I had a daughter who needed shoes. The regulars came in like they always did. Old Marcus with his newspaper. The 2 nurses coming off the night shift. Sophia from the flower shop 3 doors down, who set a single daisy by the register every Friday because she said a diner should smell like more than bacon. They were my people. Rowan Street was the kind of block where everyone knew whose kid was whose and who was going through a hard patch and who needed an extra plate quietly slid across the counter with no charge. Meridian did not care about any of that. Meridian saw a corner. A square of dirt with a number attached. Around 10, the door opened and a man walked in who did not belong. You could tell in a second. The suit was too clean, the shoes too expensive, and he looked at my diner the way you look at a car you are about to sell for parts. Mr. Warren? He said, all teeth. Preston Vale. Meridian Group. I handle community relations for the Rowan Street development. Community relations. That is what they call it when they take your community and relate to you why you have to leave. I got your letter, I said. Then you understand this is happening. He set a folder on the counter, right on top of Della's blue paint, and slid it toward me. We would rather do this the easy way. There is a relocation offer inside. It is generous. Frankly, it is more than this place is worth. I did not touch the folder. This place, I said, is worth my wife's name. He smiled like I had said something charming and simple. I will leave it with you. The offer stands until the end of the month. After that, the numbers change and they never change in your favor. He tapped the folder twice. Be smart, Mr. Warren. Sentiment does not pay a mortgage. He left. Sophia watched him go, then looked at me from across the room. She did not say anything. She did not have to. Half the block had gotten the same letter. The bakery, the barber, the flower shop. Meridian was not buying a building. It was swallowing a street. That night, after Nia was asleep, I sat at my kitchen table and I opened the folder. The number inside was smaller than the debt I owed on the diner. Taking their offer meant I would walk away owing money on a place I no longer had. Refusing it meant I would owe even more when the lease ran out and I lost everything anyway. There was no easy way. There was no way at all. But I did not know that yet either. I only knew the rain started the next evening and did not stop. Came down hard and gray, the kind of rain that empties a street. By 8 o'clock the diner was almost dead. A couple lingered over pie in the corner. My one waitress, Dominique, was rolling silverware and watching the clock, because she had a bus to catch and a mother to look after, and I had already told her to go home. That is when the door opened, and the woman came in from the rain. She was in a wheelchair, a simple one worn at the arms. She had a gray coat soaked through at the shoulders and a scarf that had done nothing against the weather. Her hair was silver at the front, pulled back, and rain ran down her face, though she did not seem to notice or care. She was maybe 50, with the kind of eyes that took in a whole room in one pass and missed nothing. The couple in the corner glanced up. Then they glanced away the way people do, the way I have seen people do to my own daughter's classmate who uses braces on his legs, the way people look at a wheelchair and decide it is a problem that belongs to somebody else. The woman rolled forward and stopped, because the nearest table had chairs pushed in tight around it and there was no room to fit. Dominique looked at me. It was closing time. My cook had already scraped the grill. I untied nothing. I just walked around the counter, pulled 2 chairs away from the window table, the good table, the one with the view of the street, and I turned it so there was room. "Come on and out of that," I said. "You picked the best seat in the house. That is the drying rack right there. Give me your scarf." She looked at me for a moment, and something shifted in her face. Surprise. Then something quieter under the surprise. Something almost like being caught off guard by kindness. "You are about to close," she said. "We close when the coffee runs out," I said. "And I just made a fresh pot." I hung her scarf near the grill where the warmth would reach it. I brought a towel for her hands. I poured her coffee without asking, because on a night like that you do not ask, you just pour. And then I did the thing my mother taught me, the thing Della used to say was the whole point of the diner in the first place. I sat down across from her for a minute and I talked to her like she was a person, not a wheelchair that had rolled in out of the storm. "Rough night to be out," I said. "I had a dinner," she said. "A restaurant across town. Reservation for 1. When I got there, the host explained that their dining room was up a short flight of stairs, and they were terribly sorry, but there was really no way to accommodate me. She wrapped both hands around the coffee. "He said it the way you would tell someone the kitchen was out of the fish. They turned you away. They apologized while they did it. That is the modern version." She took a sip and closed her eyes for a second. "This is very good coffee. That is the only thing I am truly proud of," I said, which was a lie, but a small one, meant to make her smile. It worked. Her name, she told me, was Vivian. She did not give a last name and I did not ask for one. We talked for almost an hour while the rain drummed the window. She asked about the diner. Not polite questions. Real ones. When did it open? Who was Della? Why blue? I found myself telling her things I did not tell strangers. About the promise I made. About the 2 years of double shifts driving nights before I saved enough. She listened the way almost nobody listens anymore. Completely, without waiting for her turn to talk. Then her eyes moved to the counter, where I had left that Meridian folder sitting all day like a stone I could not lift. "You are being pushed out," she said. It was not a question. "The whole block," I said. "Company called Meridian bought the ground out from under us. We have until the end of the month." Something passed across her face. I could not read it then. I read it very differently later. "And what will you do?" she asked. "I do not know yet," I said, and it was the most honest thing I had said in days. "But I am not signing their paper. Not while I can still turn on the lights." When she left, the rain had softened. I walked her to the door and held it, and she stopped in the frame and looked back at the warm blue room. "Thank you, Elias," she said. "You have no idea what tonight meant to me." I told her to come back any time. I meant it the way you mean it to a stranger you expect never to see again. She came back 2 days later. And then again. And then she was a regular, the way people become regulars, quietly and then all at once. She always took the window table. She always ordered the same thing, eggs and dry toast and that coffee, and she always left exact change plus a tip that was too large. And when I tried to wave it off, she gave me a look that ended the argument before it started. We became friends. I know how that sounds. A diner owner and an older woman who came for the eggs. But some of the best friendships of my life have started across a counter. She started coming in the slow hours on purpose, I think, so we could talk. She asked about Nia, and I showed her the drawing my daughter had made of the 3 of us. Me and Nia and an angel with wings that Nia insisted was her mother. Vivian looked at that drawing for a long time. "She sounds like she has a good father," Vivian said. "She has a tired one," I said. "Sometimes those are the same thing." I told her everything, eventually, about the debt, about the second mortgage I had taken to open the doors, about how the Meridian offer would leave me owing money either way, and how I lay awake doing the math and the math never came out right. She listened, and she asked sharp questions, the kind an accountant would ask, and I remember thinking she was smarter about money than anyone I had ever met, and I remember thinking it was strange that she never talked about her own work at all. Whenever I asked what she did, she waved her hand and said, "I sit in meetings and disappoint people," and she would change the subject. I should have paid more attention to that. But I liked her, and when you like someone you let them keep their small mysteries. Meanwhile, Rowan Street was dying by inches. The barber took the Meridian offer and left. His windows went dark. Then the bakery. Preston Vale came by every few days now, always polite, always with that folder, and every visit the tone got a little colder. The last time he did not smile at all. "You are the holdout, Mr. Warren," he said. "Do you know what happens to holdouts? The offer expires, the lease ends, and then it is not a negotiation anymore. It is a locksmith. I am trying to help you avoid that." "You are trying to close a deal," I said. "Do not dress it up as charity." His jaw tightened. For the first time the polish cracked, and I saw the thing underneath, and it was not a man who cared about community relations at all. It was a man who was going to get his number no matter who he had to roll over to get it. 10 days, he said. Then the price drops. Then it keeps dropping. You will beg for what I am offering you today. He left the folder. He always left the folder. That night I could not sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with the bills spread out and the numbers circled in red, and I put my head in my hands. And for the first time since the funeral I let myself feel how badly I was drowning. Nia's backpack was by the door. Her drawing was on the fridge. And I did not know how I was going to tell my daughter that the place with her mother's name on it was going to belong to strangers. I almost signed. I want to be honest about that because a lot of these stories pretend the good man never wavers. I wavered. I had the pen in my hand at 2 in the morning. My pride was the only thing that had gotten me this far, and my pride was about to cost my daughter a roof. What good is a promise to a dead woman if it puts your living child on the street? I did not sign, but it was close, and I hated how close it was. The next morning, Vivian came in early, earlier than usual, and she was different, quiet. She had a newspaper folded under her arm, and she set it on the counter and pushed it toward me without a word. I looked down. It was the business section, and there was a photograph. A gala, some charity event, men in tuxedos and a woman at the center of them all in an elegant black dress, seated in a wheelchair, smiling for the cameras. It was her. I read the caption twice because the first time my brain refused it. Vivian Cross, Chief Executive Officer of the Meridian Group, at the annual Foundation Gala. The Meridian Group. Meridian. The company that was taking my diner. The company whose folder had sat on my counter for 3 weeks like a loaded thing. The woman I had told everything to. The debt. The math. The drawing on my fridge. My daughter's name. My wife's name. She had sat at that window table and let me pour out my whole life, and the entire time she was the one holding the knife. I set down the coffee pot very carefully, because if I had not set it down I would have thrown it. "Get out," I said. "Elias. You are the CEO." My voice did not sound like mine. "You are the person doing this. To all of us. To the barber. To Sophia. To me. And you sat right there and let me tell you about my daughter." "I did not come here to deceive you," she said. Her hands were flat on the newspaper. "I came here because of what happened at that restaurant. The night of the rain. I had left a board dinner early because I could not stand to sit through one more presentation about the Rowan Street project, and then I tried to eat alone and got turned away from a staircase, and I was as low as I have been in years. And then I rolled into a diner about to close, and a man I had never met turned the best table in the house so I could reach it, and hung up my scarf and talked to me like I was a person." Her voice caught. She let it. "Do you know how long it had been since a stranger did that? I run a company of 9,000 people, Elias. I sign the checks and cut the ribbons and everyone smiles at me, and not one of them sees me. You saw me before you knew I was worth anything to you. That is the whole reason I kept coming back." "You still let it happen," I said. "The paper is still on my counter. The clock is still running. Preston Vale is still circling this block like a shark. You could have stopped it with a phone call, and instead you came in for the eggs." She was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," she said finally. "I could have. And I did not, and you have every right to be furious. But listen to me now, because this is the part that matters." She leaned forward. "I did not know." "Did not know what?" "How they were doing it." Her jaw set. "The Rowan Street acquisition was approved before I was ever shown the details. I was told it was a willing sale. Owners cashing out, a tired block ready to turn over. That is what the report said. That is what Preston Vale's team put in front of my board. And I believed it because I was busy, and because I trusted the people whose job it was to tell me the truth." She tapped the newspaper. "And then I started coming here, and I saw the barber's dark window. And I heard you talk about the offer that leaves you in debt no matter what you choose. And I realized the reports were a lie. There was no willing sale. There was a man in an expensive suit squeezing people until they broke, and then writing it up as a handshake." I stared at her. "Then why?" I said slowly. "Have you not stopped him?" For the first time, she looked away. "Because I am not sure I still can," she said. "The board meets in 3 days to approve the final phase. If they approve it, the demolitions are contracted, the leases terminate automatically, and it is out of my hands. And Preston Vale did not build this deal alone. He has a champion on my board. The chairman, a man named Grant Halloway, who put me in my chair as CEO and has spent the last year deciding he made a mistake. This project is his. If I move against it, I am not fighting one man in a suit. I am fighting the person who can have me removed." She looked back at me. "I came here for 3 weeks because you were the only good thing in a story I was ashamed to be part of. And now I am telling you the truth, and I am asking you to trust me for 3 more days, because I think I finally know how to fix it. But I cannot do it from behind that table. I need you to do something first, and you are not going to like it." "What?" I said. "I need you to let it get worse," she said. "I need you to let Preston Vale think he has won." I did not trust her. Not fully. How could I? But there is a difference between trusting someone and believing them, and I believed her, God help me, because I had spent 3 weeks watching her be the only honest person in the room, and honesty like that is hard to fake for that long across a diner counter. So I listened, and the plan she laid out was quiet and cold and smart, and it turned on one thing. My pride. The very thing that had almost sunk me. She needed me to swallow it. 2 days later, Preston Vale came in with his folder for the last time, and I did the hardest thing I have ever done at that counter. I let him win. "You said the price drops today," I said, and I let my voice shake, and it was not entirely acting. "I cannot lose everything. I have a little girl." He smiled. The polish came right back. "Now you are being smart, Mr. Warren." He opened the folder and clicked his pen and slid the paper across Della's blue counter. "Sign at the bottom. You are making the right choice." I looked at the pen. I thought about my wife. And I thought about what Vivian had told me. "Do not sign it, Elias. Get him talking. He cannot help himself." Men like Preston Vale love to explain how clever they are, and he does not know that the diner has a camera over the register, and he does not know the phone in your apron is recording every word. "Before I sign," I said, "I need to know I am not the only one. The others who left. The barber. Did they really sell willingly? Because if I sign this and find out later you strong-armed people, I want to know I am not making a mistake." And Preston Vale, who had one, who was so sure he had one that caution felt beneath him, leaned against my counter and told me everything. He told me how they had inflated the appraisals to make the block look blighted. He told me how he had cut off the barber's access to a loan by making a phone call to the bank, which was fraud, plain and simple. He told me how the willing sale language in the report to the board was, in his words, creative. He told me the number Meridian would make on the redevelopment, and it was so large that my part of it, my whole life, my wife's name, was a rounding error to them. And then he laughed and he said the thing I will never forget. "Cross has no idea," he said. "The CEO. She thinks this is all clean. Holloway and I feed her the version she wants to believe. She signs off, everybody wins. She is a figurehead in a nice chair. Now sign the paper, Mr. Warren, and let the adults finish the job." I signed nothing. I put down the pen, and I looked at him, and for the first time in 3 weeks I let him see that I was not afraid. "You know what?" I said. "I think I will hold on to that offer a little longer." His face changed. "You are making a mistake." "I make a lot of those," I said, "but not today." He left angry and confused, and he still did not understand what had just happened. He would understand in about 18 hours. That night I met Vivian in the empty diner after closing, and I set my phone on the window table and I played it back for her. Every word. The appraisals. The bank. The creative report. The part where he called her a figurehead in a nice chair. She listened to the whole thing without moving, and when it ended, she was very still, and her eyes were bright and hard. "Play the last part again," she said. Played it again. A figurehead in a nice chair. She smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who has finally been handed the one thing she needed. "Elias," she said, "how would you like to see the inside of my boardroom?" That is how I ended up standing in the doorway of the Meridian Group's top floor in my apron with flour on my sleeve. 3 weeks after a stranger rolled in out of the rain. I did not belong there. That was the point. Vivian had asked me to come exactly as I was. No suit. No pretending. She wanted the 12 people at that long glass table to see what they were actually erasing when they signed their clean paper. A man in an apron. A father. A corner of the world with a name on it. The meeting was already underway when she brought me in. Preston Vale was standing at the head of the room with a presentation glowing on the wall behind him. All charts and projected profits and a rendering of what Rowan Street would become. Glass towers. No diner. No flower shop. No blue. He saw me and his face went white. "This is a closed session," said the man beside him. Silver hair. Cold eyes. Grant Holloway, the chairman. The one who had put Vivian in the chair and decided he regretted it. "Vivian, what is the meaning of this?" Vivian rolled to the head of the table, past Preston Vale, and turned her chair to face the room. "The meaning of this," she said, "is that I have spent the last 3 weeks eating breakfast on Rowan Street. under a name none of you would recognize. And I have learned some things about the Rowan Street acquisition that the board was never told. That is when I heard the first line of the story, the one I opened with because she said it to that whole cold table before she ever explained herself. You poured me a cup of coffee when I had nothing to give you back, she said, and she was looking right at me across the room. Then she looked back at them. And not one person in this room ever offered me a seat. That is the whole company in one sentence, gentlemen. You have gotten so good at seeing numbers that you have forgotten how to see people. So let me remind you. She nodded to me, and I set my phone on the table, in the center of the glass, and I pressed play. Preston Vale's voice filled the boardroom. The appraisals, the bank, the creative report, and then, in front of the entire board, his own recorded voice called the woman at the head of the table a figurehead in a nice chair. The silence after was the loudest thing I have ever heard. That recording is illegal, Preston Vale said, but his voice cracked. It was made in a public business by its owner, in a jurisdiction that permits it, Vivian said calmly. I checked, but by all means let us have the lawyers look. Let us have a great many lawyers look at everything you have touched, Preston. The appraisals, the call to the bank, the reports you handed this board with the word willing in them. She turned to the table. Every one of you approved a deal built on fraud. Some of you knew. Most of you did not. I did not, and that is my failure, and I own it. But I am the chief executive of this company. And as of this moment, the Rowan Street acquisition is suspended pending a full independent review. Grant Holloway stood up. You do not have the authority to unilaterally. I have exactly that authority, Vivian said. And if you would like to test it, Grant, we can call an emergency vote right now, and I will play this recording for every board member, every shareholder, and every reporter who has been asking why a company that talks about community keeps leaving dark windows behind it. She let that sit. Or you can sit down and we can do this the quiet way which protects the company you claim to love. Your choice. You have about 10 seconds. He sat down. Preston Vale was escorted out that afternoon. He did not go to prison because the world does not always work that cleanly, but he was finished in that industry, and the independent review found enough that Meridian settled quietly with every family on Rowan Street who had been pushed out, and paid them what their homes and shops had actually been worth, and then some. The barber reopened. Sophia kept her flowers. It was not a fairy tale. Some people had already moved on and did not come back. But the block did not become glass towers. It stayed a block where people knew each other's names. And then there was the matter of me. 2 days after the boardroom, Vivian came into the diner, to the window table, like always. She ordered the eggs and the dry toast and the coffee like always. And then she put a folder on the counter. I flinched. I could not help it. The last folder on that counter had almost ended me. Relax, she said, reading my face. It is not that kind of folder. Inside was a document, and I read it 3 times, and I still made her explain it because I did not trust that the words meant what they said. Meridian was not just canceling my eviction. Meridian was selling me the building. The whole building. At a price so far below its worth that it erased my debt instead of adding to it, and set it up so the payments were smaller than the rent I had been paying for years. I owned Della's now. The ground it stood on. My wife's name on my land. I cannot accept this, I said, and I meant it. And here is where my pride, the thing that had almost drowned me, tried to drown me one last time. This is charity. I did not do this for a reward. I turned a table because it needed turning. I will not be paid for being a decent human being. Vivian looked at me for a long moment, and then she said the thing that finally got through. It is not charity, Elias. It is a correction. She folded her hands. My company took something from this street it had no right to take, and I am the person responsible for giving it back, and you are the one who caught us doing it. You did not get paid for being decent. You got restored for being robbed. There is a difference, and a proud man should be able to tell them apart. She slid the pen across the counter the way Preston Vale had, except this time the whole world was different. Besides, I am not doing you a favor. I am protecting an investment. A company that forgets how to see people fails eventually. I need somewhere to come every week and remember, so think of it as rent. You keep the coffee coming, and I keep coming back, and neither of us ever forgets what happened on the night it rained. I signed. That was almost 2 years ago now. Della's is still on the corner of Rowan Street. The paint is still that soft blue, the color of the sky right before morning. Nia is 9 now, and she still leaves her purple backpack on the third stool by the window, and her drawings still cover the register wall, and there is a new one there of a woman in a wheelchair with a coffee cup, because my daughter decided a long time ago that Miss Vivian is family, and children are not wrong about these things. Vivian still comes in every week. Eggs, dry toast, that coffee. She stepped back from the day-to-day at Meridian and started a foundation instead, one that helps small owners hold their ground when the towers come for their block, and she runs it out of a table at my diner half the time, and I am proud of that in a way I do not have good words for. Grant Holloway retired. Preston Vale I never heard from again. And me, I am still tired. I am still a single father doing math at a kitchen table some nights. Owning the building did not make the work easy. It just made the work mine. But I sleep now. And when I lock up at night and turn off the light and look back at that warm blue room through the glass, I think about how close I came to signing my wife's name away because I was too proud to be seen struggling, and how a stranger in the rain saved my whole life simply because I once did the smallest possible thing. I turned a table. I poured a cup of coffee. I looked at a person everyone else had decided not to look at. That is the part one keep coming back to. Everyone in that first restaurant apologized while they turned Vivian away. The couple in my diner looked and then looked away. It was not cruelty. It was just the ordinary blindness we all carry, the habit of deciding in half a second who counts and who does not, who is worth our time and who is a problem for somebody else to solve. She was one of the most powerful people in the city, and she had been made invisible because a wheelchair was all anyone let themselves see. I did not welcome her because I knew who she was. That is the whole point. I welcomed her because I did not. Kindness that waits to find out if a person is important is not kindness. It is just investment. The only kindness that means anything is the kind you give before you know what it will get you, to the person who cannot do a single thing for you in return. Because you never really know who is sitting across from you. And more than that, it should not matter. The woman soaked in the rain, the man at the counter, the person everyone else is looking past right now, today in your own life. Treat them like they count. Not because of who they might turn out to be, because of who you are when you do. I almost lost everything to my own pride. A stranger saved me with nothing but eggs, dry toast, and the truth. And it all started because I refused to let one person feel invisible on the worst night of her week. So here is what I want to ask you, and I really do want to know, so tell me in the comments. When was the last time you were the only one in the room who chose to see someone that everyone else was ignoring? And if you cannot remember, who could you see tomorrow?